Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. Let's talk about the brand new 2021 Rolex 36mm Datejust dials. And you're probably aware of a couple. Now, this for me was sort of a sleeper of an announcement in the sense that I saw the dials, but I was focusing on bigger things, right? But then when I actually looked into it, it's pretty cool. And again, you're aware likely of two of the dial styles, but there are actually 9 different dials. There are 3 styles, and each style has 3 variations. And one of those styles I didn't even know about until last night when I was really diving into the website. And we're going to talk about that towards the end. Now, I love 36mm Datejusts. That's my size, it's the classic size. And let's talk about the first new dial. It's the fluted motif, all right? And we're going to look at the fluted motif, and I'm going to go through the 3 variations from the one I like the least to the one I like the most. All right, the first is the silver fluted motif, and that shows up on the steel and rose gold two-tone Datejust. And just looking at the dial, silver is kind of right, for me. And of course the surrounding watch, that would be the least likely version. I mean, I'm not much into two-tone, but I'd probably be more likely to go with the yellow gold over the rose gold. All right, so we've got that. Next, the two-tone yellow gold version, and that's the golden fluted motif. And that's beautiful. I gotta say, if you like two-tone watches, this is something. I mean, they almost look like gold bars, and it's a very attractive dial. So that's nice. And then my favorite of the fluted motifs, the blue, and that comes on the steel 36mm Datejusts. And it's a beautiful blue. And I don't know which I like more, the sunburst dial, which was always my favorite dial color, or this, because the visual elements make it really interesting. Is the regular bright blue now kind of boring? Would this be the one to go for? I honestly can't decide. Now, as far as the pattern itself, I mean, it's a very industrial look in the sense that, it's a repetitive pattern. And I don't know how I feel about that, especially in light of the second dial we're going to talk about, and that's the palm motif. And I'm sure you've seen the green one, the nicknames out there, the reefer dial, marijuana dial, weed dial. All right, well, it's clearly, unfortunately, just a palm leaf, all right? And let's talk about what I think is the most interesting, and that would be the green version, all right? And the green version, look, green is an interesting color. It's such a fun dial to look at because green is relaxing, and from top to bottom, left to right, no part of that dial is the same. I mean, I think if you gave me a Rolex watch and a loop, I could go to town for a good 20 minutes just looking at any Rolex watch with a loop. If you took away my loop, well, I'd probably get bored a lot faster. But this is a dial I could probably stare at for 20 minutes just looking at the intricacies of the pattern and just how it's completely different. So I really like it. I love nature too. So I think the olive green palm motif version of the palm motif dial is my favorite of the 3 variations, and it comes on the steel Datejust. And I think Rolex, and here's a side note, sometimes they'll let you mix and match things. You can do that on the website, and you can have it in a oyster bracelet, jubilee, fluted bezel, smooth bezel, but they often will have only one variation photographed, and maybe that's a hint as to how they think that dial should come. And they have that on the oyster bracelet with a smooth bezel. Those are the photographs. Now again, you can mix and match, but you're not going to get the photographs you're seeing here. And so again, maybe that's Rolex saying this, in our opinion, is the best variation, and I think it is. Beautiful watch, very affordable when you think about a brand new top of the line Datejust with the newest movement. It gets a lot more expensive if you go fluted bezel, or it gets a tad more expensive if you go with Jubilee bracelet, but this is a really neat variation, and it appeals to my tree hugger side. Would I get tired of it? I'm not sure. All right, my second favorite then, well, when I say second, my second least favorite when it comes to this dial style would be the one on the steel and yellow gold, and that's the golden palm motif. And again, it's beautiful. And I think I actually like this more than the fluted motif because, again, the fluted motif is a little bit too industrial and you have the variation and that beautiful warm gold color. So if I were a two-tone guy, and, I guess I could be a two-tone guy in the future, this is a beautiful dial. And then we get to the third variation, and that's the steel and rose gold. And that's the palm motif in silver. And again, it's just a little bit cool. No warm colors. It just doesn't really do it for me, but then neither does rose gold. And we get to the mystery dial. And what is it? Well, it's the Wimbledon dial. And it was always on the 41 millimeter date just. And look, a lot of people love that dial. I'm sure a lot of people don't like the dial. In fact, a lot of people say that indice at the 9 drives them crazy. Kind of an interesting note. That indice is the only part of the dial that glows besides the hands, which is kind of interesting. For me, I'm not sure if I love the Wimbledon dial or if I don't like it. It's certainly visually stimulating, and I don't think you're going to ever get bored, so I kind of like it. And Rolex must have been reading my thoughts, because with the 41 millimeter version, that just is a little bit too big for me. And I thought, in my mind, if it only came in 36, we'd be having a conversation here. And now we are. And I mentioned that there are 3 variations, and I've never noticed this before. It's really interesting, but if you look at the coronet on the dial at the 12 and the surrounds on that 9 indice, those change depending on the variation. So you've got the steel version, and that would be in white gold, the accents, the coronet, and the surrounds on that indice. But then on the yellow gold and steel two-tone date just, it's yellow gold. On the steel and rose gold, it's rose gold. So there are actually 3 variations of the Wimbledon dial. I've never noticed that before. I mean, if I saw on eBay a Wimbledon dial for sale and it was a great price, and I had a date just and I knew it was authentic and I snapped it up, you might be getting the wrong one for your actual watch. So 9 different styles, and honestly, which would I go for? I cannot say. It is a tough choice. So throw a comment in the comment section and let me know what you would go for. Now, a little bit about date justs. When I first started collecting watches, I got the no date sub 14060, and I conceptualized what would be my perfect collection. All right, and I decided it would be the no date sub, the 40 millimeter Explorer 2, and a GMT and number 4 for a perfect 4-piece collection, a date just. Well, I never went date just, but I love the date just, and it's interesting because I find myself more stimulated looking at the date just versus almost any of the steel professional models. And maybe that's because most of my watches are like that, but it's a date and time only watch. And so I don't know if I would get that watch and think, there are not a lot of functions and I'm kind of getting bored, and I want my rotating bezel, I want my 4th hand, I want my chronograph. I don't know how I would feel. I don't know if the visual aspect would be enough to long-term satisfy, but maybe I should try it. Maybe I should check it out. It's interesting because I used to be a real OP guy, but it doesn't have the date. And, the date is one of those things. I mean, you're dead in the water if you don't know the date. You got to check somewhere. But if you have the date and the time, really, unless you need to the second timing, you don't really need the chronograph. You can use your memory. You can also calculate for another time zone. And so really, do we need all those functions? It makes life easier. It makes wearing and using your watch a lot more fun, but you could adapt, and it would really come down to mentally having to do those figures and remember times and all those things, all right? But the advantage is a great 36 millimeter compact classic, interesting dialed Datejust. So it's definitely not off the table for me, and maybe it would be a little bit easier to get out there. So let me know what you think. I think these are really interesting, and it makes me like the 36 millimeter Datejust even more. Again, which dial would you go for if I had to pick? I gotta say, I love the olive green palm motif with the smooth bezel and the oyster bracelet. I'd get used to those polished middle links, no problem. I think that's a beautiful variation. Now, as far as the blue dial, if I had to have blue, would I go for the classic or the fluted? Oh, that's tough. Oh, the fluted. I'd have to go with the fluted because it's so interesting. So let me know what you would go for. Thanks for watching. Take care. And if you haven't seen the other videos talking about the other 2021 Rolex releases, links in the description. Take care. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.